Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive for November 2nd, 2024. Today, we're focusing on Nigeria again, bringing you all of the top news. From politics to security to the economy, we've got you covered. We've gone through a whole stack of Nigeria's top newspapers to bring you the most important insights and connect the dots so you can quickly get up to speed.
That's right. We're going to take a deep dive into these stories and try to figure out what's really going on.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump right in. The big story in Nigerian politics today is still all of the controversy around President Tinubu's tax reform bills. He's facing a lot of pressure to withdraw them, but he's holding firm, insisting that these bills need to go through the proper legislative process.
Yeah, this is really interesting to me. You can see this playing out in this day live in The Guardian, and it really shows you something about Tinubu's style as a leader. Like, he's not afraid of a fight. He's willing to stick to his guns, even when it's not popular.
Yeah. It's definitely causing some friction. The Guardian even highlighted this clash between former Senate Majority Leader Doom, who supports the reforms, and then you have the Arewa group, who are totally against them.
Yeah, it's a real tug of war, and it's going to be fascinating to see who wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, meanwhile, over in River State, the political drama there just keeps on escalating. Both the Nation newspaper and the Guardian are reporting on this. A court just issued a ruling that's basically frozen all local government funds.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. And of course, it wouldn't be a real political crisis without some accusations flying around, right?
Of course not.
So, to be frank, he's publicly claiming that this is all part of Tinubu's master plan to push out Governor Fubara.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether there's a genuine concern or just political maneuvering.
Right. Well, I guess time will tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of all this, the pro-Fubara faction in the assembly, they're now pushing INAEC to hold by-elections for all those empty seats in the state.
Wow, so that could really shake things up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could completely reshape the political landscape. Speaking of things that are connected, we have to talk about the ongoing saga of Godwin Emefiele, the suspended central bank governor.
Oh, right. Yeah. What's the latest there?
Well, a court has just ordered the final forfeiture of millions of dollars, properties and shares that are linked to him. Both the Nation newspaper and the Guardian have the details on this.
Wow, that's a pretty major development.
Yeah, it is. And, it's important to remember that Emefiele maintains his innocence. But regardless of the outcome, these legal battles are definitely going to have a ripple effect on Nigeria's financial world.
For sure. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about these end bad governance protests. Things seem to be escalating there, and it's sparking some serious debate. We've got coverage on this from Daily Post Leadership News, Daily Trust, and The Guardian.
So what's happening now?
Well, the government has now charged 76 protesters, including some minors, with treasonable felony.
Treasonable felony.
Yeah.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, and it's really ignited public outrage, especially the fact that they're detaining these young people. Amnesty International, SERAP, and a number of legal experts have all come out and condemned this.
It's a really sensitive issue,
Yeah.
because it highlights that tension between freedom of speech and government control in Nigeria.
Absolutely. This case definitely brings that tension to the forefront.
So moving on to security matters, there's been a truly heartbreaking incident in Ibadan, Oyo State. A building has collapsed, leaving a lot of destruction and casualties. The Nation newspaper actually interviewed some of the survivors, and they shared their really terrifying experiences.
Oh, gosh, that's awful.
Yeah, it is. And it's a stark reminder about how important building codes and safety regulations really are. And in some other disturbing news, the police in Ebony State have uncovered a horrifying organ harvesting ring.
What?
Yeah, the Nation newspaper reported on this, and it seems that this operation has already resulted in multiple deaths.
Oh, wow, that's just chilling.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. It raises some really disturbing questions,
Yeah, like what kind of desperation would lead someone to become a victim
Right.
of something so horrific?
Exactly. It makes you think about security in a different way, right? It's not just about physical safety. It's also about protecting people from exploitation.
You're absolutely right.
Now, in some slightly more hopeful news, the Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa is calling for more collaboration to address all of the security challenges that the nation is facing.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, the Nation newspaper highlighted his message. He's urging military leaders to work together to try to put an end to the insecurity that's plaguing different parts of the country.
It's encouraging to see that kind of leadership.
Definitely. And before we jump into the world of business and finance, there's one last security-related story that I thought was interesting. It seems that the Hizbah police in Bauchi State are questioning a 76-year-old man who posted some pictures with his ex-girlfriends on Facebook.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Daily Trust had the scoop on this one.
Okay, that sounds kind of funny.
Yeah, it does. It does. But, it actually speaks to a larger issue. It's this clash between traditional values and social media expression in a very conservative part of the country.
I see what you mean.
Like, how are these two worlds going to continue to navigate each other as technology keeps evolving? It's a fascinating question.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Okay, so let's switch gears now and look at the economic landscape. Leadership News and The Guardian are both warning about a potential food crisis that could impact millions of Nigerians by 2025.
Wow, a food crisis. That's a serious issue.
Yeah, it is. And it's something that we really need to be paying attention to. We're talking about widespread hunger and hardship. The FAO report that these articles reference, it really digs into the factors that are driving this crisis. And it's a wake-up call for policymakers to start taking action now, before it's too late.
I agree. This is something that needs to be addressed urgently.
Absolutely. Now, in other economic news, there's a power struggle brewing between Aviation Minister Festus Keyamo and the House of Representatives.
Oh, what's going on there?
It all stems from this decision to revoke licenses for private airstrips.
I see.
And this could have huge implications for businesses that rely on these airstrips.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The Nation newspaper is reporting on this. And it really highlights how tricky it can be to navigate regulations and government decisions, especially in a sector as important as aviation.
For sure. There's a lot at stake.
Okay, so let's move on to some business news. It's a bit of a mixed bag today. The Guardian is reporting that BUA Foods is seeing some pretty impressive revenue growth.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, it is. It's a bright spot in what's otherwise a pretty uncertain economic climate. But on the flip side, there's some controversy brewing around the Dangote refinery's fuel prices.
Oh, really? What's happening there?
Well, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association in Nigeria, they're raising concerns that fuel from Dangote is actually more expensive than other sources.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, and they're calling for some kind of intervention to make sure that there's fair pricing for consumers. Daily Post has covered all of this.
So it's like this clash between market forces and consumer interests.
Exactly. Now to round out our business roundup, we have some interesting news from This Day Live. They reported that 6 major banks have posted huge profits, totaling $4.15 trillion for the first 9 months of 2024.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
It is. But at the same time, we're also hearing about Total Energies. Their global CEO is pledging billions of dollars in investments in Nigeria's energy sector.
So it's like you have some businesses doing incredibly well, but then there are still these underlying challenges that require these massive investments for long-term stability.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so speaking of balance, let's talk about the global scene before we wrap up our Nigeria coverage. This Day Live is reporting that the U.S. presidential election is really heating up with just a few days to go until voting day.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a close one.
It is Vice President Harris and former President Trump are in a full-on sprint to try to win over those undecided voters.
It's a nail-biter for sure.
Yeah.
The whole world is watching. And the outcome's going to have major implications, not just for the U.S., but globally.
Absolutely.
Trade, international relations, security, everything's on the table. And that's why this election is so significant for Nigeria. The two countries have really close economic ties. So what happens in the U.S. could have a direct impact back here.
It's like that saying, no man is an island, everything's connected.
Exactly. Events on one side of the world can definitely ripple across borders. And that's especially true when it comes to something as impactful as the U.S. election.
I totally agree.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from political showdowns to economic anxieties, and even a glimpse into the global arena. But what does it all mean for you? Well, if you're in Nigeria, you're living in a time of, it's a pretty dynamic change. Let's be honest, serious uncertainty. But I think that being aware of these events, it empowers you to engage in these conversations, make thoughtful decisions, and even contribute to positive change.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. And I think that understanding these complex issues, it allows you to see the bigger picture and navigate this constantly changing world with more confidence.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So let's take a minute to recap some of the key takeaways. From our deep dive today, we started with the political scene, where President Tinubu's tax reform bills are causing this major rift, and the political crisis in Rivers State is another story that we're going to continue to follow closely.
And then we moved on to those security concerns. From that devastating building collapse in Ibadan which really highlights the need for stricter building codes and safety measures, to that just chilling discovery of that organ harvesting ring in Ebony State. A stark reminder of just how vulnerable individuals can be and the need to really address the root causes of these horrific crimes.
And of course, we can't forget about the Chief of Defense Staff's call for a united front against insecurity. You know, that offers at least a glimmer of hope in a situation that can often feel really overwhelming.
Then we shifted over to the economic front. We explored the looming food crisis that's been predicted by the FAO, a sobering reminder that food security is such a complex issue with far-reaching consequences, and it requires some proactive solutions and collective action to address.
Absolutely. And we also delved into the world of business, where we saw both positive signs of growth, like the success of BUA foods, but also points of contention, like the controversy surrounding fuel prices from the Dangote refinery.
And finally, we zoomed out to the global stage, where the U.S. presidential election is captivating everyone's attention.
Now for a final thought-provoking question to ponder. Given the looming food crisis that we talk about, what steps can individuals and communities take to try to mitigate the potential impact? This isn't just a problem for policymakers to solve. It's something that requires a collective effort. So we really want to hear your thoughts and ideas on this. Share them with us in the comment section below.
And remember, staying informed is the first step towards making a difference. So share this deep dive with your friends, family, colleagues, so we can all be part of the conversation and work towards a more informed and engaged society.
Couldn't agree more. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the news that matters most.
We'll be back soon with more insights and analysis. But until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those insightful comments coming. We appreciate you joining us on this journey of discovery.
We'll see you next time.